So you guys probably saw this already. Boom. This was the cover of a recent Rolling Stone. Nancy Pelosi's there, along with Johanna Hayes, Ilhan Omar, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't really want to talk about this article per se. I just wanted to show you guys this. Because obviously one of these things is not like the other. Goes without saying, one of these things is not like the other. That being Nancy Pelosi. So I wanted to get your guys' take on the whole thing, but also, here's my take on it, and I go a little bit further here, you know, because some people were like, I don't like the fact that Nancy Pelosi's in that picture, and I echo that sentiment. I think she is pretty out of place there, but I go a step further. I don't like the idea of Nancy Pelosi being on the cover of Rolling Stone, but I also don't like the idea of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being on the cover of Rolling Stone. I don't like the idea of Ilhan Omar being on the cover of Rolling Stone. And I don't like the idea of Johanna Hayes being on the cover of Rolling Stone. And here's why. So Rolling Stone is not quite what it used to be. It still has some great contributors. It's still, a very influential magazine. But, back in the big days of print media, Rolling Stone was a big behemoth. And the cover of Rolling Stone, that was a big frickin' deal, I mean, it was a rite of passage for bands. It was a step in one's musical career for artists. We get all kinds of thrills and take all kinds of pills, but the thrill that you love the most is the thrill that'll get you when you see your picture on the cover of a Rolling Stone. Right? That was from the movie Almost Famous, but that was something bands used to say. So the cover of Rolling Stone was a very sacred thing. And I think, my opinion is that cover should be reserved for a creative. That cover should be either to a musician or something music adjacent. Like a writer, like I'm all about Hunter Thompson being on the cover of Rolling Stone. He was on the cover at least one time. Kurt Vonnegut, I believe, hit the cover of Rolling Stone. I'm all about that. Or a comedian. Obviously, I'm okay with comedians. Or an actor, even. But I feel like a politician, they shouldn't be given the cover. Now, you might say, hey, Ron, there's been a long history of politicians being on the cover. I know that. I'm not for that. Now, they also have a long history of political coverage, and that I'm 110% for. Hunter Thompson used to write brilliant pieces for Rolling Stone. And now, more recently, we still have Matt Taibbi, who has written some brilliant pieces for Rolling Stone. There are still some great political pieces in Rolling Stone to this day. Is it the magazine that it used to be? No, not quite. It's certainly, the media's just evolved. There's just more outlets now. It's just not quite the behemoth in the room it used to be. We already mentioned that. But my personal take is that I just don't think. I think there should be a certain amount of reverence granted to that which is the cover of Rolling Stone, and I don't think it should be given to a politician. Do I feel strongly to the point where I'm boycotting it now? But no, I don't feel that strongly. I'm just saying, if I was on the editorial board and they showed that cover to me and they were like, "You stoked for it?" and I was like, "No, I don't think." Why don't you just have, you can still have a subheading, by the way. People are like, well, Ron, what if it's somebody, what if the main lead story is concerning something in politics? Well, you can still have like a blurb about it. You can give the cover picture to somebody else in every case. So in this, for instance, they could have a blurb like, we're covering the Green New Deal. Everyone from Pelosi to Ocasio-Cortez, what are they saying about it? But then they could have given the cover to somebody else. So, my big thing, I don't think that the cover of Rolling Stone is appropriate for a or maybe appropriate's not even the right way to put it. I don't think it's the right thing to do. And if I was on an editorial board, I would vote it down 100% of the time. Even if it was a politician I liked. Whether it's one I like or don't like, it's irrelevant. I would still be like, nope, I'm not for it. You want to see Tulsi Gabbard on it? No. Bernie Sanders? No. You know, like, oh, we're skewering George W. Bush. But no, don't put him on the cover. Have a little blurb. Put an artist on the cover. Now, the one thing, if it's an artist going into politics, what do you do there, Ron? And honestly, that's an interesting... I guess, like, if it was someone like an Al Franken, for instance, who, you know, as of recent, I've disagreed with a lot. But, you know, just looking at it from an artist standpoint, he's a comedian who decided to enter politics. I feel like in that case, yeah, that's an exception. You know, I mean, that guy had been writing for years. He's been in show business for years. But, so, of course, there are some kind of crossover exceptions, and I get that. But, you know, that particular, for instance, would be an exception. Saying, hey, Ron, Bill Clinton plays the saxophone. What about him? No, that's not. He's a politician. When somebody is dominantly a politician first, I just don't think the cover of Rolling Stone's necessary. What do you guys think? And I'm sure some of you disagree with me. Some of you probably think, like, well, they have a long history of good political coverage. So why not give them the cover? That's a fair argument. I just feel like it's a certain amount of reverence. It's a sacred space, and I feel like it ought to be reserved for an artist. Let me see what you guys are saying. Janai says, Nancy is loving the attention. She could care less about any of their policies, but she is all for the media coverage. That's probably true. Lady says, Rolling Stone really doesn't need politicians, although I love the progressive ladies on that picture, but yes, I see your point. Steve says, my Rolling Stone subscription ran out years ago. Don't really feel like I'm missing much, even in terms of music coverage. Yeah, I mean, you can just kind of read it online if you want to, and yeah, there's a lot of other stuff out there now. Tim says, might as well have George H.W. Bush and Cheney having a tickle fight on the cover. Sagittary says, who reads magazines anymore? Well, I mean, I still read a lot of articles from magazines, but I always read them online. Ron doesn't like having non-musicians on Rolling Stone cover. No, I didn't say that. I said I don't like having non-artists on the cover of Rolling Stone. I feel like the cover of Rolling Stone should be for an artist. It doesn't necessarily have to be a musician, but it should be an artist of some sort. And, you know, as far as politicians goes, they get to be on the cover of literally everything else. Pretty much everything else. Time magazine, you know, you name it. And again, I don't have like I'm not like, I'm boycotting now. Like I don't have, I'm just saying if I was on the editorial board, 100% of the time, I'd be against a politician being on the cover of Rolling Stone. Whether it's a politician I like or don't like. Dana, what if they put Trump on Rolling Stone? I'd be against it. I'm all about them having an article about Trump, and it would probably be criticizing Trump. You know, but I'd be against him being on the cover. So yeah. Jilly agrees. And, you know, magazines do take up a lot of paper, so it's good to read them online. I'm all for that. Best scene of all time, Apology Line. I've never heard of that card, no. Can I get it online? We should have a zine. We should totally have a Zine Music Monday episode where we talk about zines. There's still... You know what's pretty amazing? In Pasadena, where I live... Daniel brings up, wait, hang on, I gotta resent. Trump was in show business. Oh, that's a good point. So Trump, again, he technically meets that exception I was talking about earlier. I didn't even think about that. But that's very true. Trump was in, I feel like for him, show business should go in quotes. I mean, he was a reality TV host. But yeah, I guess technically by the criteria I gave, then Trump should be one of those exceptions. But I feel like when you're president, the exception line kind of goes away for you. I feel like when you're president, I don't know. And I feel like calling Trump an artist is very much a stretch. I mean, even if I, you know, despite the fact that I disagree with pretty much everything the guy is about, even if that wasn't the case, calling him an artist is very much a stretch. So I feel like Trump does not make that exception. No. I feel like Trump does not make that exception. However, Josephine, Ronald Reagan would. And again, I don't like Ronald Reagan at all. But Ronald Reagan was an actor for years. So if they would have put Ronald Reagan on the cover right when he became president, I would say, well, that's fair. That's fair. Anyway, we mentioned zines. I accidentally stumbled one day, and it was such a beautiful stumbling upon thing. I stumbled upon a zine festival in my neighborhood of Pasadena, California, and it was really freaking cool, and it was free, and there were all kinds of zines everywhere. And, yeah. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and